Hey folks, how's it going? Well, I don't routinely do videos on my channel that have to do with kind of like current events or news stories or anything like that. I think one reason is, there's so much bad news these days. I just don't want to go there. So I don't normally do these kind of videos. But there's one thing that happened recently in my area that struck pretty close to home, and I thought it was worth making a video about. So. Out west of here, here in Huntsville, Alabama, there's a city it's called Madison, Alabama, and it's kind of interesting because most of that city is in Madison County. Just a little trivia. And by the way, yes, this is a Santa Claus still on the wall in February, this long after Christmas. So anyway, this is just one of these. It's like Huntsville in a way. It's not near as large, but it was basically like Huntsville. It was until the Redstone and the military and space and engineering and things like that, electronics came. It was basically a nothing place. So, just cotton farms way back when. There's just cotton farms. There's just nothing there. So it's really grown. It's just basically. There's nothing in Madison except just people living there. It's just a residential community, city. It's got a lot of these newer neighborhoods and stuff. So that's a little history of Madison. And so anyway, what happened was, those of you who watch the news or read the news routinely, you may have seen this, but back on the 6th of February, a gentleman was walking around one of these new cracker box neighborhoods where all the houses are jammed close together and there's no yard, and it has some fancy ass name on the front of it to make people spend more money on a house there. So he was walking around out there, and one of the white bread residents saw him and had seen him a couple different days, obviously just walking around, and so they called 911. They thought he was suspicious. So I'm taking this directly out of the newspaper too, by the way. So anyway, they called 911 on this guy, and the 911 caller says, reports a person walking around out there. Said, he's just doing it yesterday and today. He's just on foot. He's kind of walking around close to the garage. Somebody said he was peeking in garages. I don't know about that. But the operator, the 911 operator, asked what the man looks like. This is quoting. He's a skinny black guy. He's got a toboggan on. He's really skinny. Ooh, that's noteworthy. He adds, I've lived there 4 years and I've never seen him before. Well, it turned out the rest of the story is this man that was allegedly walking around by the garage out there he's an Indian citizen. That's the country. That's not American Indian. Indian citizen. He had been here about a week. He was here to help his son, who is an engineer, had bought a house in that neighborhood. He was there to help with the older man's grandson, the engineer's grandchild. And so, evidently he's just out walking around for something to do. He's fresh air. He wasn't doing anything wrong, probably. So he had a toboggan on. I doubt that. He probably had some sort of Indian headgear on. So they called the cops on him. The cops show up. And here's where this gets really, this is Madison City Police, by the way. Here's where this gets really embarrassing for me personally, because I live here, and it ought to really embarrass the city of Madison. I hope it does. The two police officers that show up, I won't name their names, but you can get this all off al.com. That's two letters, al together.com. That's what has tried to replace our newspaper, and you ask me, it's failed at it. We don't even get a daily paper here in Huntsville anymore. You get the paper 3 days a week. A city this large, and Birmingham, as large as it is, and one other one, Mobile, Montgomery, you don't even get a damn daily paper here. We're the last community around here can get a daily paper. We can't. But that's beside the point. I digress. I have to do my thing there with the video camera. But anyway, so the two cops show up. And here's, like I said, this is what is really, truly, honestly embarrassing about this. The one officer is a trainer. A trainer. He's the one supposed to know every procedure, how to do things. He was training a trainee. So they ask him some questions. And they can't understand him because the gentleman from India speaks no English. And so, you know, that's not a stretch to imagine that the two officers wouldn't understand anything. All they understand here in the South anyway is American Southern English, so they're not going to understand any of that. So anyway, the man, they say he resisted or he just didn't comply with them. He had his hands in his pockets, allegedly, of his outfit, backed away from him. Turned out, in India, that's what people in India do. I know nobody here in the South would ever know that, but anyway, so the officer, according to the news story, threw the man to the ground hard enough to bust his lip and put him in the hospital. He had two vertebrae fused together and he's got paralysis in one leg. So, you know, he just threw him, basically, just threw him. And here's the next embarrassing part about this. This is caught on their dash cam. This is not anything that's alleged. It's fact. It's on the dash cam. Here's what the trainer says, and I'm quoting this directly. He don't speak a lick of English. He don't speak a lick of English. Now, you know, I've lived here all my life, 43 years, and I'd like to make a few points here. First off, I know I have an accent, a strong accent, because this is where I'm from. This is the way I sound when I talk. You know, I'm not embarrassed about it. I don't make any excuses for it. You folks from Canada and up north and California, you speak differently. Your speech is different from ours. And, you know, but I think that people here in the South, myself included, you know, we have a deserved reputation for mangling the English language, and that's the first point I'd like to make. You know, they didn't understand him. They couldn't understand Hindi or whatever he speaks, which that's understandable, really. I can give you that. But that's embarrassing. You know, they said here in this news report, they says, well, Huntsville and Madison are kind of a cosmopolitan community. No, they're not. Because I want to tell you something. Cosmopolitan to places in this part of the country means chain restaurants, chain stores, and fancy overpriced houses. That's what cosmopolitan means down here. It doesn't mean any kind of culture. It doesn't mean you understand any more languages. So you see the redneck is showing there. He don't speak a lick of English. The next point I think I'd like to make about this, talking about the language thing, you know. People down here, you know, if you live here in this part of the country, I suggest you don't, but if you live here in this part of the country, you know, it's been 50 years since we've had any kind of racial struggles and, you know, integration happened and all that good stuff. And I'm inclusive. I'm an inclusive person. I'm colorblind. I don't, you know, this place is like any other place. We have the bad elements, and sometimes the bad elements tend to be a certain part of the demographic, you know, to put it nicely. But that's everywhere. It just happens. Otherwise, you know, I'm not like that, you know. And so, but people down here in the South, they are still very, for the most part, even if it's a so-called fake cosmopolitan place like Madison or Huntsville, they have a strong prejudice remaining against people that are not white. Because, you know, I'm out in the community and I'm out traveling and I hear what people say. People don't like Indians, and I'm talking about Indians from India. You know, they don't like them. And, you know, I've heard, as a matter of fact, I've heard someone personally right to my face that's supposed to be a big Christian, big in the church and everything, and that's, you know, when you're a Christian and you're in the church, supposedly you're supposed to not be a hypocrite, but I've heard him say he wished they'd go back to their country. He just disparaged them, you know, and that revealed to me, when I hear things like that, that just reveals to me how hypocritical people are, especially in this part of the country. So that's embarrassing to me. That's truly embarrassing. Even if somebody lives there my whole life, that's totally 100% embarrassing. And you know, I'm not that way. You know, I don't. You know, people that live here their whole lives, that are born and bred from the South, you know, not only do they, you know, they dislike people of other colors, the Mexicans, they disparage the Mexicans, they say every bad thing about them, even though you see Mexicans out here working, doing jobs that these big fat white men won't do. The big fat white men will sit on their asses and collect unemployment. And I've seen Hispanics, I don't know if they're Mexican, we all call them Mexicans, but Hispanics, that's what they are. I've seen them out on a 95-degree day breaking bricks apart. That was their job. No shade around them, sitting there with their hat on and their long sleeve shirt on, and they're used to that kind of heat. That's not a big deal to them. After breaking bricks apart, that was their job. There was not a white person to be seen out there. So, you know, that, and you just, oh man, folks, it just makes me, I'm embarrassed. I'm really embarrassed for this part of the country. I really am. You know, you hear people, they say, you know, I've actually seen this on the internet too, on YouTube. I've heard people bitching. This is another thing that pisses me off so bad. People will bitch about that. They'll say, well, he's speaking Mexican. And for crying out loud, man, please don't try to embarrass yourself so bad that you know, while you're sitting there, and we're kind of veering off the story here, but when you're sitting there and you're saying something like that, you know, not only are you a hater, but you're revealing just how uneducated and hypocritical you actually are, because you're not even smart enough to know there's not a language called Mexican. You know, you see people down here, you know how people in the South, the rednecks down here, you know how they deal with another language. If someone else acts like they don't understand English, they'll say the same thing over again, but they'll say it louder. It's like it's gonna be $2.57, and the person is whatever they say. It's gonna be $2.57. You know. And I'll say this, growing up down here and living down here among people in the South my whole life, I'm going to tell you something. People down here are the last people that need to be bitching about somebody not understanding English, because if you heard the way that people in the South mangle the English language, you should hear it. You should live here every day and hear this. You really should. It'll be an education for you, for sure. Double negatives, I ain't got no money left. And they call driver's license, they'll call, well, I ain't got my licenses. There's only one card, but it's a licenses. So, upshot of it is, you know, your redneck is still showing down here. You can call yourself cosmopolitan. You can build all the cracker box fake brick houses close together with fancy ass names on them as you want to, but this is still the same old cotton town underneath it always was. You know, I said in another video, I said something that could have been misconstrued, but I said that people, I think I published that video, I'm not sure, but I said people down here in Huntsville don't sound like they used to, and that's true because a lot of BRAC people. BRAC is base realignment and closure. You know, we have Redstone Arsenal here, and as bases have closed, these people have elected to take a transfer to Redstone. So there's a lot of people here now in Huntsville that aren't from Huntsville. So they're wherever they're from, St. Louis or California or maybe Florida or up north, places Midwest, places like that. You know, they 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 sound like that. You know, they sound like where they're from. That's all different. We've already talked about that. But as a matter of fact, my neighbor here, the old man and his wife that live next door, they're from Pennsylvania, and the ones across the street, they're from somewhere up north, I think. You know, so it's just what Huntsville is. But I'm going to tell you something. Like I said, it's the same old crummy cotton town underneath as it always was. You know, you can, like I said, you can build the neighborhoods, you can build the chain stores, you can build the chain restaurants, but that is not going to give you class, and it's not going to give you culture. Not here, not ever. When my parents came here to Huntsville from Indianapolis in 1958, the summer of 1958, this was such a desolate, Huntsville was such a desolate cotton town with nothing here and dirt streets. It was so bad that they were that close to turning around and going home. But my dad had a good job offer here with the government, so they stayed. So they were happy about it, but they stayed. So anyway, thank you for bearing with me through this long story. And I don't know if it was a story or a diatribe or what it was, but just wanted to talk about this and give you my thoughts on that. So thanks so much for watching. Have a good one, guys. See ya.